All right. Welcome, everybody. Friday night. Hope everybody's doing well. Just get this set up a little bit. All right, welcome, everybody. Let me know you're out there. Hope everybody's doing well. It's been another crazy week for much of the U.S., but I know we got lots of friends visiting from whole other countries all over the world. So welcome. For those of you tuning in, we're going to talk a little bit about, hello, Kyle. What's up, man? Welcome. We are going to talk about alternate tunings tonight. I think this one was titled Open Tunings. Hey, Elias. Rodrigo, hello. It was titled Open Tunings, but I'm going to also talk about alternate tunings as well. We're surviving, Jim. Thanks so much. I hope it's not too cold up in Canada as well. Susan, welcome as always. And the audible headache from Cali, welcome. Excellent. Okay, so even though we put in the title Open Tunings, yes, we're going to talk about just a few alternate tunings as well. I guess the whole thing, the whole umbrella would be alternate tunings, and some of these are what are known as open tunings, which I will get to in a bit. Frank, welcome from Arizona. Excellent. Kenneth is here. Great to see you again. All right, so of course, alternate tunings. Tonight I'm going with the acoustic guitar, but of course you can do this sort of thing on electric as well. Okay, so I've just chosen the acoustic tonight. Always very handy to have with the if you're talking about tunings, very handy to have the headstock clip-on tuner, right? This is a Snark, Super Snark. There are many brands, or any kind of tuner device is very helpful with this. Susan, I've been writing an etude this week in Open G. Excellent, great job using the open strings. It's a great way to keep on playing when we've got some issues with the other hand. So kudos to you. Excellent. Okay, so I'm in standard tuning right now. And also, I should say, for those of you tuning in for the first time on these YouTube sessions, I'll talk about this topic for the first half hour, 40 minutes, and then it's wide open for any guitar-related questions. So if you've got anything at all for guitar-related, any kind of question, just put it there in the comments, and towards the end of this hour, I will scroll through and try to hit everything I can and help out in any way I can. Excellent. Okay, and hello to everybody else jumping on. So what I did actually, and there's one more thing, if you expand the description right underneath here, I have provided a link to just a simple PDF document that lists off some of the tunings we're going to talk about tonight. But by no means is this the end-all, be-all, completely exhaustive list of all types of alternate tunings. I just chose the most common ones to sort of talk about and put in a few little extra things in there. So basically, there's no tab in this document. It's just a PDF with a list of what the notes are for, this stuff is easily Googleable as well. So Googleable, I guess is the word. But I thought I'd offer it up anyway. So yeah, as I go through some of the shapes and some of the things here, I didn't tab them all out, but the good news is this video will stay on YouTube, so you can sort of rewind back and check out the chord shapes, and I'll try to break it down as best I can. So without any further ado, top of my list is good old dropped D. So drop tunings are really common. And so as far as alternate tunings go, this one's the easiest one to get to. And it's just dropping that low E down a full step to D, okay? You can use a tuner to do this. A lot of people just kind of grab the lower parts, lower strings, and you can kind of zoom in on where it stops. You can hear where it kind of wavers and rubs against the other open strings. You can kind of hear when you get it into tune there. And just a small little tuning tip for those of you that might be new to the guitar. We're going to do a lot of sort of twisting the machine heads, but always when you're looking for a different note to tune your guitar to, or whenever you're tuning your guitar, always tune up to the note. Never tune, like for example, if it's sharp and you tune down to the note, never stop it there, because the string could slip and it could go out of tune again. What you want to do is bring the tuning peg so that it's below the note you're going for, and then tighten it back up, okay? So always bring that note into pitch, okay? Okay, so now we've got the low D. What's up, Peter? Thanks for joining again, as usual. Awesome. Okay. And so the obvious sort of use of this tuning is just that richer open D chord. Right? Immediately it just gets bigger, thicker, right? Obviously, the other big thing for drop D are the low string power chords become one finger chords. We're going to get into this a lot more when we get to the open tunings, but on drop D, let's turn this down a bit. I don't want any nasty distortion there. Okay, so simply just to get a power chord, you can go the low 3 strings on one finger. Now, what you have to watch out for, and this goes for any of these tunings, I'm going to keep coming back to sort of this general idea, is that you have to sort of keep your wits about which strings have changed from what you usually know in standard tuning, okay? So once you know that this is a step down from what would be a normal chord shape, you have to compensate for that by just, first of all, if you know the fretboard, to know, okay, know what notes are under there, because when you do the one finger power chords, that low string note is going to be the root. So now we're down to D, right? So our E is going to be on the 2nd fret now, F on the 3rd fret, G on the 5th fret, so on and so on. A is going to be up here. Soundgarden, here you come. Mr. Daniel, welcome. Top of the hour is when we started. Thanks for jumping in. Right, so just remember, okay, that the top of the guitar is all the same, but now you can think about adding in the root notes on the low string onto some cool things. JB, what's up from North Carolina? Welcome. Okay, so one of the first things you can do is just these one finger power chords, right? Okay, we've got a whole genre of music based on the old drop D, just doing those low notes. And what happens is you can move those power chords a lot quicker than you can if you're fretting, sort of in this shape, right? All right, Sophia. Well, welcome, first of all. Second of all, this session is for you, because I want you to see how fun this is and how sort of easy it can be if you just keep a few things sort of in your mind, okay? So very common, one finger power chords. All right. If you know the fretboard a little bit, it's a little bit easier to sort of adapt your fingers to sort of knowing, your familiar shapes up top. And anytime you kind of go to a D, you just add in that low string, right? Okay, it just opens up some cool new ideas. One of the other things I wanted to show you is just sort of adapting, like say a G chord, for example, on here, like using open chords. If I went for a regular G chord here, it's not going to sound right, because that's an F down here, right, instead of a G. So you can make this open G chord just by grabbing the G note, 5th fret, and then using your index finger on maybe the top two strings, 3rd fret. You can either use your pinky or your ring, and just curl your finger to mute the A string. And that's a really common way to get the G chord. On drop D. One other cool thing I want to show you about drop D, and then we'll move on to the next one, is that, in the 90s, there's a lot of drop D stuff going on in rock. And they used the traditional, sort of close to a power chord shape. And so you end up with this sort of cool sus sound. And so what it is, so for example, I'm barring down on the 5th fret of the low 2 strings, but then you add a higher shape, 2 frets up on the D and G strings, and even adding in the B string as well. And so you've got sort of this major chord up top, but you're adding sort of a step down onto the 5th. And so it gives that sus sound, like a sus4 kind of sound on the low end of the chord. It's really cool, like a lot of, use that shape. Okay, some famous songs. And so what's cool is that they're easy shapes, but you experiment a little bit and you come up with some really cool stuff, right? So it's the whole point of just doing something simple like detuning the string. Okay. All right, so sort of a counterpart to this particular tuning is the double dropped D. And this just simply takes the high E string now and drops it down to D, down a full step. Somewhere around there. Okay. So you can check it with the 3rd fret of the B string, or just use the tuner. Obviously, the more accurate thing to do. That's good to train the ear a little bit, right? Okay. So now you've got a D note on the top string. So now, in order to make a D chord, you can make sort of a fuller D5 kind of sound, open D power chord. So it's pretty cool to have that open string up top. I like to use move some chord shapes around. So if I use just the 2nd fret of the G and 3rd fret of the B, you can use all the strings there and sort of play off this, the D's are sort of droning out a little bit, and you just move that little D double stop shape. Come up with some cool ideas. You do the same thing. Get some interesting sounds just doing, like, for example, I'm barring down on the D, G, and B string and moving those triad shapes around. That's a major triad. What I'm doing there is I'm sort of muting the A string so that it doesn't ring out, and that way I can play these chords against that D droning, the low and high D droning out with it. You end up with some interesting sounding things, right? That one doesn't sound very good, but all right, so I don't see a lot of songs in double drop D, but it's kind of a cool one to mess around with a little bit. And it's certainly just sort of the next logical step from the drop D. Now I'm going to jump in a little bit, Mr. Daniel, since you're the black metal guy, and you like to tune down to C. So any of these tunings, obviously, you know, in metal, we've got like these dropped B, dropped C type tunings, which are really popular. I'm not going to kind of go into them here, but I just want to let you know that's sort of the idea, is that you could start with a guitar that's already down a full step, right? And then just drop that low string down to C and end up with some just really low stuff like that. Yeah, Sophia, good ear. Right on. That was it. Everlong, a little bit of Everlong, right? So, yeah, so, you know, obviously in metal nowadays, you've got 7-string guitars, you've got baritone guitars, and you've got those dropped, really low drop tunings. So I just wanted to mention that. Sort of the same idea as this, but just with thicker strings. Yeah, heavier strings. Yeah, exactly. So if you have a guitar that you're going to keep like a whole step down or dropped, or, you know, just sort of, it's always worth sort of checking out the string gauges. And sort of, you know, if it's going to be a little bit lower, you want to increase the string gauge, get some heavier strings on there to sort of just keep the tension a little bit, sort of, you know, what you're used to on the guitar. Same thing, we're going to come across some open tunings that might, you know, we might tune a little bit tighter and raise the pitch on some of the strings. It's the same idea. Maybe use some lighter strings on that so that it's a little more even across the guitar. All right, so now I'm going to get into some open tunings. And like I said, you know, we're just spending a little bit of time touching on these. I'm going to show you a few little tricks and common sort of moves, some things you can do with this. But by no means is this an exhaustive study of all the possible alternate and open tunings. Okay, so we're just going to kind of just touch on a bunch of stuff. So open D. All right, so I've already got a low D and a high D. And if I tune the G string and the B string down, the first thing I'm going to do is tune the G string down to F sharp and tune the B down to A. Okay, and then another thing you'll find is that once you know, especially on an acoustic guitar, once you start moving strings around, it's always good to go through all the strings and just retune a little bit. Some of them will just kind of adjust, like the wood is sort of moving a little bit to the different tensions. So I'm just gonna, yeah. So I apologize, I don't have robo tuners on the Martin. Close enough for rock and roll, right? So now in open D. Yes, indeed, Peter. Couldn't resist. All right, so now we've got all the strings tuned to a chord, okay? And so that's the whole idea of what's called an open tuning, is that you've tuned the guitar to an open, to a chord with all the open strings. Cool, Cheryl, right on. Thanks for hanging in there. Okay, so now we've got a D note, right? The root. A is the fifth. D, another root. F sharp is the third. Okay. Another A, which is the fifth, and then another root up top. So we've got a full D major chord here. Okay. So what the open tunings allow you to do is use one finger to just move across the fretboard into different major chords. So for example, in the key of D, I can play my 1, 4, and 5 chords, right, with one finger. So here's my, well, with my one chord, I don't need to even have any fingers on it, right? It's just open. Okay? 4 chord is going to be G, and I can just do a full finger on the 5th fret. A chord is the 5 chord. All right, so all of these open tunings sound nice and rich. You've got just the the open strings just ringing as a chord just has a really nice rich sound, right? So these are really cool to play around with. Now, some common moves in this tuning is to sort of play off of the major chord by highlighting the move to the 4 chord and back and forth. So for example, I'm using this shape that looks like basically an open E shape without the 4th string. Okay, so I'm just putting my finger on the 2nd fret of the 5th string, 1st fret of the 3rd string. Now still, you've got a lot of D's and A's in this, but you've moved a few notes onto the 4 chord, which is the G chord, right? So I've got a B note and a G note down there against that D and that A. So it gives you sort of a sus4 sound. And even if you just wanted to do that sus by itself, it's just one finger onto there. So if I move to the 4 chord, sorry, which is a G chord, and use that shape, in this case, it'll be the 7th fret of the 5th, 6th fret of the 3rd string. Okay, really nice sounds here. And of course, if you wanted to, you could just do that sus just on the 3rd string, right? And you'll add in that 5th string with it. Okay, it's really cool. Another variation is to just use the full E shape. That adds in a whole other, that adds the 2 in as well. So it's adding in E against that D chord with the G and B. Again, just has a really cool sound to it. I'll try it up here on the 5th fret. Now you could simplify it a little bit and just use the 4th and 3rd string. So here I'm adding the 7th fret of the 4th string, 6th fret of the 3rd string. Really cool. Okay, so I'll give you a few ideas there. What else can we do? A little bit of what if you picked through and instead of just adding those chord shapes onto strums, you can just add those notes individually. Just trying to come up with melodies a little bit when you've got those. Okay. Cool. All right. So another thing that the open chords, the open tunings are great for are slide, because this is just essentially a one finger doing chords, but now you got the slide sound going on, right? So. And slide sounds really good, like kind of bluesy with those major chords being slid around. Okay, I'm gonna try a different slide. That one rattles a little bit. Go with my brass one and see if it's any better. Okay, so just mess around with. Maybe I'll do a slide session down the ways. I use my middle finger, which isn't really that great of a proper slide. A lot of people technique. A lot of people use the pinky or the ring finger and kind of guide it with your other fingers. I'm sort of a little more just like Texas slide a little bit, Billy Gibbons. So once again, a whole other application of open tunings is the slide. So right, so just wanted to show that a little bit as a cool move. All right, so open D. So this is great. Open D. You can now, just like what we talked about with drop D, and whether you go down a full step or some people might even go up a full step and do like a dropped E kind of thing. So in this case, with the open D, we can actually tune everything up a step and go to open E. Now, I'm not going to do that because it's getting those strings a little bit tighter than, sort of you're always erring on the side of caution on guitars, particularly with these gauge of strings I have on here. If you start tuning up a little bit too much, you're getting in the danger zone of having something snap and pop on you. So basically just know that open E is exactly the same tuning, but everything's up a full step, okay? Absolutely, Peter, I'm with you on that. But one little workaround that can work on this is to put a capo on the guitar. So I've got it to open D, and now I've got it to open E. Okay, now I have to slide everything over to play, as if the capo is now the nut. And there you go. That one of those shapes I showed you is actually the She Talks to Angels riff right there. So just basically an open E shape against the open chords. What is that? She Talks to Angels, goes to the 4 and 5 chords. All right, so now I'm at open E. Just know that your 4 chord and your 5 chord you have to move it up 2 frets in order to have it be in the key of E now, right? And you can use all those same moves. Right, cool. Even the slide, everything, it all works. One other thing I wanted to show was if you wanted to do a minor chord in a guitar that's tuned to major. So that's kind of tough to do. What you'd want to do is look at where that major third is, and you got it on the 3rd string, right? So you're going to have to move that down a fret in order to get a minor third on the chord. So it sounds a little bit thinner here, but for example, the 4 chord, if you wanted to go minor on it, like if you've got that full 4 chord, it happens on the 3rd string. You have to bring it down a fret, okay? So then you have to curl your fingers around on all the other strings. So I'm actually getting the 5th fret of the low string, but I'm curling around to mute. Curling my finger to mute the 5th string, and I'm also with my index finger down a fret on the 3rd string, I'm pressing against the 4th string to make sure that doesn't ring out. Okay? So it's just one of those things where you have to think about, chord construction, where's the third in the chord, right? And if I'm fingering it with one finger, in order to get a minor, you just have to locate that third chord and move it down one fret. And then try to fill in as best you can on the other string. Make sense? Cool? All right, so let's get to the big daddy here. Open G, which of course, the Keith tuning, if you were to use 5 strings, but open G is super popular. Again, great with slide. It's an open chord, so good for one finger chords, right? So let's do it. D. And then we're going to go from A down to G. I'm gonna have to redo this. I apologize for all the tuning in here. And we've got D here. From F sharp, I gotta go back up to G. Third string's G. Second string's back to B. And top string stays on D. Okay, so from low to high, D, G, D, G, B, D. Tune it up one more time and we should be close. Ooh, that's bad. There we go. All right, so there's another one. Okay? All the open strings give you an open chord. Okay? Once again, 4 chords going to be on the 5th fret, 5 chord on the 7th fret. Nice. Honky tonk women. Now, what's interesting about this tuning is that really, Keith was on to something, Keith Richards, because, that low G note on the 5th string, strumming from the 5th string all the way up just sounds really nice. Hey, what's up, Daniel? YYZ. And I find that adding that low D string in makes it a little bit muddy. So okay, so one of the things to think about here, and you can think about, I've been talking about this for all these alternate tunings, is you want to hold on to where the strings are still tuned in standard tuning. And open G is a great one because you've got the D, the open D, open G, and open B strings, like the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd are standard tuning. So all your usual tricks there work. Or like any of your triad shapes, any of your chord shapes, any kind of your like mini little scale boxes, they all work here. And then you just have to keep your wits about you with the high E string and the 5th and 4th strings, okay? And once again, those are all a step down. So anything that is going to have to be 2 frets up on those strings, okay? So for example, an A chord, okay? You can use one finger to get the A chord here. Now, really popular stuff, again, is what I was talking about, using sort of that yes, Susan, he did. It got in the way, right? That low D string got in the way. Okay, so some really nice stuff here. If you focus on the top 5 strings, okay? And some of the shapes that work really well are, sort of your usual shape here on the triads. This also works in standard tuning. when you bar down for a major triad on the D, G, and B strings. And then you can highlight the four chord with a similar shape to what we were doing on the open D. Okay? So that's in this case, I'm on the 5th fret of the D, G, and B strings, right? 4th, 3rd, and 2nd. I'm adding the 7th fret of the 4th and the 6th fret of the 2nd string. And you can add that. You can now have your finger on all 6 strings and add that. I think it always sounds better with just the 5th string all the way up. It's that low 5th is a really specific sound, but it tends to kind of muddy up things. And sometimes you want that, but I just find it a little bit cleaner to just focus from the 5th string all the way up. Okay, and all your like little tricks, ornamentations that you use, right? The 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings are basically standard tuning. So you can right? All right, so that's right. That's right, Elvis. G is on the 5th string, D is on the low string, okay? And you've got a D on the high string. So those 3 strings are tuned down a full step from standard tuning. Wanted to show, again, slide works so great here. Right on, Lisa. Thanks for joining in. Really fun stuff here. So sort of just a really easy slide kind of thing that you can do is just, playing around a chord that you want to play to. Like, let's say if you want to go to the 5 chord here in the key of G, which would be D, right? This is up here in the 7th fret. I always find like just picking a string out and coming in from 1 fret below. How well would this work for hard rock tones? It works great. You can absolutely use these open tunings with crunchy electric guitar, crank up some distortion on it, and works really well. Works well for sort of just chordal stuff, right? It's a little bit easier to play because you've got a fuller chord that you're holding on to, okay? That you wouldn't be able to do it in standard tuning. You'd have to have your fingers on different frets, but here just the full chord lines up on 1 finger, so then makes it really easy to add in ornamentations while keeping it sounding full. Cool, makes sense. So audible, standard tuning on 4th string, 3rd string, 2nd string, but the 1st string is tuned down a full step, okay? Jim, are there songs on Guitar Tricks using open tunings? Yes, absolutely, 100%. There's a lot of Rolling Stone songs that use it, okay? Yes, Peter. Derek Trucks is one of the greats. My gosh, just amazing stuff. But back to Jim here. Yeah, check out the Rolling Stone songs. There is a ZZ Top song in open E, I think. maybe open D with some slide stuff that's really cool. So yeah, there's stuff on Guitar Tricks with open tunings, and actually some really weird alternate tunings too. There's Soundgarden used really weird tunings. And what else? Peter Frampton, Show Me the Way was actually open G, I think. So you're going to get some different chord shapes on Show Me the Way. And yeah, so there's lots of stuff on Guitar Tricks. I was thinking, as far as alternate tunings, some of the Goo Goo Dolls stuff had really weird tunings. Like he would tune to a lot of just droning notes, like a lot of roots and fifths, you know, sort of C type of thing. Right? Cool. What did a pentatonic scale look like? Well, I mean, it's going to be a lot different because we know those boxes on standard tuning, right? So we have to adjust for that. So for example, like if I was to play, like this is a G chord, right? Yeah, Joni used, wow, another good one, Lisa. Joni used crazy tunings, and she did it so well, sounded so good. So like I said at the beginning of this chat, I'm just showing you more of the common open tunings, and there's by no means is this a complete list of all of those, right? So I never really thought to play a pentatonic scale, you know, on an open tune guitar. You kind of just have to adjust for it. So if we're playing an A, right, the problem is it brings you into a different position, okay? And then this is going to be 2 frets up, so and then it's going to be 2 frets down here, right? Yeah, man, you're just breaking my mind on the pentatonic scales, right? So what you got to do is sort of stick to some of your chordal scale shapes. Like, for example, G right here. I mean, I guess that's C, right? So what would that be? Fish it around a little bit. So yeah, you've got to work inside smaller boxes on the strings that are still in standard to be able to play around with those. So major pentatonic is a natural thing. Sound good? Cool? All right. There we go. Open G. Okay? So cool stuff to be had there. Wanted to show you a couple more really interesting open tuning shapes. One of them is Dadgad, which is kind of cool. So let me see what that one is. D, A, D, G, down to A here for the second. Dadgad, right? And so this is really close to, oh yeah, there it is, Peter to the rescue with the minor pentatonic. Awesome. Cool. Now it's all out the window because I've changed the tuning now. right, so the first thing you'll notice about Dadgad is that it's tuned to a sus chord. It's actually open D. The window emoji. Okay, so instead of the major third here, you've got the 4 on the 3rd string. Okay, so some cool chord shapes here are, just basically. So I'm grabbing the top string and the 3rd string, same frets, and then alternating between that and moving down 1 fret on the 3rd string. And that's going to move your chord from the sus4 sound to the major sound. You can kind of just experiment and move these around the neck. Get some pretty cool sounds, right? And then, of course, the 2nd fret. You can add the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. You get a full D chord. You've got A, D, G here. So those are your standard tuning. So all those shapes work. Yeah, it's got a cool little sound. So once again, you just gotta, it's like when we talked about the open D major tuning, and you had to think about making a minor shape. Well, in this case, to actually make the major shape, you have to use that shape, right? Where on that 3rd string, you gotta go down 1 fret to get to the major 3rd. Cool? Cool. Okay, so another one that I wanted to sort of touch on a little bit was the Led Zeppelin open C6 tuning, which is really fun to play with. And so this one's going all the way down to C on the low string. Staying on A, then going down to C on the 4th string. So that's where you get that C6 from, is you've got an A note in the chord. So C, C, A, C. Then it's G, so that stays the same. C, so we gotta go up a little bit. We're going up 1 fret from or 1 semitone from the B. And then E up top. All right. Okay, so once again, close enough for rock and roll. We're a little bit. Okay. So open C6, so it's got an A, and then everything else is sort of C and E and G, which make up a C major chord. So you're adding an A to it, right? And so what's cool on this one is to do octave shapes. So if I get a C note on the 3rd fret of the 5th string and another C note on the 5th fret of the 3rd string, and curl my fingers so that all the open strings are ringing out with it. So Jimmy Page used this particular tuning in a lot of stuff, and I'm sure he got it from somebody before him, probably some sort of folk guitar experimenters, right? So just another cool one to mess around with. What I find works is really fun if you're lucky enough to have like sort of a beater acoustic lying around that's not maybe your main guitar, one that you can keep and try all sorts of different weird tunings, right? And come up with the whole idea is this, just to try shapes and get some interesting ideas going. So anyway, I kind of talked for a long time, but hopefully that gives a little bit of an overview of the open tunings. Any questions out there? Still got about 10 minutes. Yeah, Friends. I was butchering it, I'm sure. I think I forgot the melody on that. But yeah, Friends off Led Zeppelin 3. Sounds really great, just adding in that. Yeah. Peter's with me on that. Just alternating little melodies. It's pretty cool because that top part is just sort of has a little bit of a dissonance to it, but it's kind of cool, right? It's like major third double stops. I don't remember the melody, but it is something like that in the verse. Fun stuff to play around with, everybody. Cool. What about some questions? We got some time left for questions. We'll tune this guy back up. Oh, yeah, nice. I like that. I've strumming Susan. All I've been doing is strumming tonight. But yes, absolutely. Really just thinking about. Let me just tune this up a little bit. I'm going to go back up to open G. Apologize. A lot of dead air with the tuning, right? All right. talk a little bit about finger picking. I think that's a great strategy there. Oh yeah, a little bit of America. America loves those sort of all those open chord kind of shapes and everything. Open chord sounds against sort of a droning open strings, which works really well. All right. I think for finger picking, it's really just sort of the same strategy. I think it's really cool that, if you're placing emphasis on the strings that are alternates, but really at the end of the day, you want it to just sound like it's a cohesive chord and cohesive melodies, right? Nice. That's awesome. You're on the ukulele as well. Excellent. Audible. My favorites are Dad, Gad, and Open G. Excellent. Right on, man. Cool. As long as it sort of, just spurs some ideas, some melodies, some creativity. That's the whole idea behind it. And of course, it's just a really nice sound with all those open strings sort of droning out a little bit, right? So, yeah, tons of songs, lots of Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, and lots of just instrumental guitar music, actually. A lot of acoustic instrumental guitar music making use of the open strings. So I'm sure there's tons of stuff on YouTube to sort of check out and sort of get a little bit of inspiration from, for sure. Am I on the Zeppelin or Stones corner? I'm on all those corners, man. I don't have one or the other. I love it all. Yes, the Guitar World article on alternate tunings. There's lots of stuff on the internet on this stuff. So yeah, check it out and hopefully get it to inspire. Daniel, thank you, sir. Awesome. Right on. I got a couple minutes. If any other questions, any guitar related question right now. You guys, thanks so much for hanging out tonight. Just trying to showcase a little bit of, shaking it up a little bit and just messing around a little bit. And you'll be surprised what you can come up with, kind of when you use familiar shapes and just move them around a little bit, right? That'd be nice, Lisa, if we had. I know some of the Rockstar Studio Aces or Rockstar Pro players probably do have a stable of guitars ready in all sorts of tunings. I think are a little more challenging when you're on a budget, right? Nice. Right on. Well, I want to thank all you guys for engaging on the chat, on the live chat, and tuning in tonight. I really appreciate the support. And what's the way to bring the action down on the acoustic? That's a good question. Audible. And the way that it has to be done, and I do not know how to do this, so this is where you take it to a tech. But they actually file the saddles down to get the action lower. They do that in conjunction with, I don't know where there is a truss rod on the acoustic. So it's a combination of just, tightening or loosening that truss rod and getting the neck either nice and straight or with a little bit of relief. And then, they'll file down the saddles, okay, to lower the action. And if it's already too low, they have to replace the saddle. So they'll replace it with a higher one and then file it down to where it needs to be. That's how they do it on the acoustic. So right on, Peter. That would be classic. Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. I super appreciate it. Lisa, as always. Peter, as always. Thanks so much. Susan, Jim, Audible Headache, thanks for hanging out tonight. Daniel, thank you. Who else am I missing? Sober Elvis, thank you. Sophia, thank you. Mr. Daniel, and everybody else off the top. I appreciate it. We'll be back same time. Thanks so much. Right on, everybody. Take care. We'll be back next week.